Good morning. We are very happy to have this morning Ms. Olivera Jovanovic from Bosnia-Herzegovina. She's Secretary General of the Council of Interreligious Dialogue, or the General Interreligious Council. And we thank you very much for your keynote speech this morning. And we would be happy to ask you some questions, and if you could answer them, please. Our first question would be, what is cultural diplomacy for you, and has it affected somehow your work in Bosnia-Herzegovina?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Regarding cultural diplomacy, I think that I mentioned something similar in my speech, that from my perspective, from my point of view, the cultural diplomacy should be everyday dialogue, should be something that everyone should use in everyday work, everyday life, from the greetings on the street to the way of the behavior on the job, on the working, in the schools, at the faculties. So when you tell cultural diplomacy, maybe it's something, wow, because of that maybe word diplomacy. But I think that every human being should be a diplomat in one human sense, and in one love toward the others, and communication and skills, and etc. And regarding a specific situation in Bosnia, I think that we, through interreligious dialogue, are on good way of good cultural diplomacy, let's say. And if I can understood that the ICD starts with this kind of cooperation with religious communities and churches, so I think that will be one of the ways also to spread the cultural diplomacy out. But in a main sense, it's something everyday life, let's say.
So it comes down to each and every person.
Yeah,
to
in
do
each,
this cultural
yes,
diplomacy.
yes,
Sure.
to be diplomat, because it's something human, something good to be diplomat, not just to represent, but to represent a human being as the most perfect God's creation.
And would you have maybe one example from Bosnia-Herzegovina where cultural diplomacy, in your opinion, had an impact or had an effect?
Well, as I can see, your institute through cultural diplomacy gather young people, youth, women, many other aspects. So also in Bosnia, through interreligious dialogue, we work with the women of faith, with the young theologians, with the youth in general. We want to improve some skills and communications and everything, and I think it's very similar. And I would like for the future, if someone from your ICD could come in Bosnia and to see I think it's, like I mentioned, it's know-how. It's very heavy to explain. It's super heavy to explain. But through all our projects, it may be ugly to say project, but our way of work with all these parts of the society, that's the cultural diplomacy, actually, through interreligious dialogue.
You mentioned in your speech the education programs in the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Could you perhaps explain how the interreligious education or multi-religious education in schools is impacting interfaith dialogue in Bosnia-Herzegovina?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a religious education in public schools confessionally, but interreligious dialogue, interreligious council tries to cooperate with the religious teachers, and through them to give some normal knowledge of others to the kids, because you have a confessionally religious education, and you have religious educators who are educated at their own colleges, and they don't know a lot about the others. And now the Interreligious Council tries to educate all religious teachers how to learn to teach children about the others. And that's our prevention, let's say, on some future events, bad events or something like that. If children are educated that the others are normal, or if, for example, one Orthodox religious teacher, Orthodox Christian religious teacher, invites imam to the school for one lesson to teach the children about Islam. What does it mean? In credo, you know.
Yes.
And that's something we are trying, and through our conferences of religious educators, and they gathered, they speak to each other. And that's why I mentioned that for that conference of religious educators, it was a historical one. And really it was, because we gathered first time in history all religious educators, Muslims, Orthodox, Catholics, and of course Jews. It's small community. They participate in interreligious council, but they don't have, unfortunately, the religious education in public schools. But let's work, let's pray. I think that's something I can say our creed.
Yeah, it sounds very important.
Yeah, yes.
And how is the Interreligious Council in Bosnia-Herzegovina, how are you promoting tolerance in civil society?
Tolerance, we use that word a lot from the very beginning, but now we are trying to, let's say, avoid that word, tolerance. We use rather cooperation, understanding, mutual understanding or something, because, and I will tell how we promote, let's say, communication and understanding between the peoples and the communities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are showing that through our work. I will again, and in the end, I will be very hard worker. But it's something that from the very beginning, you know, it was interreligious dialogue. It's something not important, but today, all people consider interreligious dialogue very important, especially in the Balkans, where you have the peoples, one people connected automatically to some faith. You know, in the Balkans, Serbs are Christian Orthodox, Roman Catholics are Croats, and Muslims are Bosniaks. So that's why the Interreligious Council and Interreligious Dialogue is very good way of cultural diplomacy, and every day, that's why I mentioned that the interreligious dialogue, everyday interreligious dialogue is the strongest institution.
Thank you very much for your time. It has
Thank
been
you.
an honor and a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, thank
Thank you
you,
very much.
thank you both.